Before we get going, I would like to acknowledge my hiking partner. This is my friend Greg, also known as the Deer One. You can refer to him as the Deer One. He did the first 2 weeks this year with me, and we've hiked the Colorado Trail together and done all sorts of things like that. And I was reminded of him here where I talked about weeping for the night. One of our first nights out on the Colorado Trail, it rained like crazy, and I had like a river going through my tent, and he heard me whimpering in my tent all night. So thanks for being here. Anyhow, let's start here. The Psalms are songs. They're not lectures. They're not doctrines. They're songs. Sung prayers. And like any great song, they come from the heart. They come from the gut. The Psalms are a playlist of every human emotion: joy, heartbreak, confidence, rage, grief, gratitude, depression, even revenge. Psalm 30 has some serious movement in it. It starts with praise, dips into despair, and then rises again with joy. It's a bit like a good country ballad, or a Grateful Dead jam, or a trail story. There's a framework for understanding this movement in Psalms that comes from Old Testament scholar Walter Brueggemann. He calls it orientation, disorientation, and reorientation. Father Richard Rohr uses similar language: order, disorder, reorder. It's a spiritual rhythm most of us live, whether we recognize it or not. There are times when life makes sense and we feel we're standing on solid ground. Then something happened and the ground shifts underneath. The old answers don't work anymore. And sometimes, out of that disruption, something new begins to emerge. Not a return to exactly what we had before, but a different way of seeing and living. We see that pattern throughout Scripture, and we see it in our own lives. So, the basic movement of Psalm 30 is pretty simple: order, disorder, reorder. And it turns out that's a pretty good way to understand the Appalachian Trail. Psalm 36, verse 6 says, "As for me, I sit in my prosperity, I shall never be moved." You know that feeling? The job's good, family's fine, bills are paid, your health's holding up, and you start thinking, I've got this. David said it, and so do we. Now, there might be somebody in San Antonio who doesn't know this, so I'm going to say this, and maybe somebody in the World Wide Web as well. In 2021, I thru-hiked the entire Appalachian Trail while serving as the Appalachian Trail chaplain for the United Methodist Church. Have I mentioned that before? I see. I walked 2,193.1 miles through 14 states over 8 months. Out there, I became known by my trail name, Bone Spur, the Chapalachian. As chaplain, I tried to be a loving, listening, non-reactive presence to whoever God put in front of me. Sometimes I talked about God. Sometimes I prayed with people. But most of the time, I just needed to be available. Now this summer, 5 years later, I went back. This time I served as one of 4 circuit chaplains on the Appalachian Trail. Circuit chaplains kind of in the tradition of circuit riders that early Methodists did. My section covered 271 miles from Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, through Maryland and Pennsylvania to Delaware Water Gap. I began each day with a prayer carried by Father Michael Judge, the New York City Fire Department chaplain, who was tragically killed on September 11th, and who was also a recovering alcoholic. Here's what the prayer said: Lord, take me where you want me to go. Let me meet who you want me to meet. Tell me what you want me to say, and keep me out of your way. That was basically my job description. Pray, show up, pay attention, and try to stay out of God's way. This summer, the ministry also took me into 5 United Methodist churches. I preached as the Chapalachian. Hat, backpack, hiking poles in my hand from the pulpit. At Walnut Bottom UMC, I discovered their VBS theme was True North, hiking the trail with Jesus. I thought, well, they got the right guy this week. I preached Sunday, and then I came back Tuesday for VBS. It reminded me that the trail wasn't always under my feet. Sometimes it led into a church, a hostel, or a conversation with whoever God put in front of me. While hiking, though, it seemed like I was always ascending or descending. It seemed that way because I was. Frequently, these climbs would lead us to what hikers call pointless ups and downs. It can be disappointing to spend 2 hours on a 2,000-foot vertical ascent only to be enveloped in trees or clouds or both on top. There's a lesson that I learned after experiencing this many times. Here it is. There's always a view. You just need to look. Another lesson was this, and something I think we can glean from Psalm 30. There's no such thing as a pointless up and down. That phrase became the heart of a song I wrote by that name. It's going to be on my upcoming second album, in fact. The song opens like this. Climb to the top and there's nothing to see. Just a wall of clouds and a cage of trees. No ridge, no valley, no grand reveal. Just aching legs and the drag of the trail. That is order beginning to crack. We climb because we assume there will be a payoff. We expect the view. We expect life to work in a certain way. We think we know where the trail is taking us. Then we get to the top and discover that life has not consulted our itinerary. Psalm 30, verse 7 says this, by your favor, O Lord, you had established me as a strong mountain, and you hid your face, and I was dismayed. That's the turning point. This is disorder, disorientation. The next verse of Pointless Ups and Downs says this, drop to the gap where the cold winds hum. No sunlight reaches, no shuttle will come. No time to rest, no water to find. Just another climb up, another steep grind. Ugh. You ever been there? No relief in sight? No shortcuts? Just a weary soul and another steep ascent. Disorder is when the plan falls apart, the relationship crashes. The faith you once had feels paper thin. The diagnosis hits. Or sometimes it's simply silence. God seems gone. And sometimes disorder looks like Pennsylvania. Right. There's a line later in Pointless Ups and Downs. The mud of Vermont tried to pull off my shoes. Pennsylvania is where boots go to lose. Well, guess where God sent me this summer? Pennsylvania. Apparently, there were some things that I needed to learn. So Pennsylvania is known among AT hikers as Rocksylvania. For most of the section, rocks weren't obstacles on the trail. The rocks were the trail. There were boulder fields, loose ankle breakers, and vertical rocks that looked like razor blades sticking out of the ground. Sometimes you'd look ahead and think, surely the trail goes around that, right? Then you'd see a white blaze painted across it, indicating, no, that's the trail. I wrote another song this summer called 10 More Miles to the Lookout. And Pennsylvania inspired one of its more spiritual lines, spiritual. Through the rain and the pain and the great disdain I have for the fool who decided to blaze the trail right across these rocks. That's not Walter Brueggemann. That's not Richard Rohr. That's not even Darrell Lord Smith. That's Bonespur the Chapalachian. And I meant every word of it. Sometimes disorder isn't a profound theological crisis. Sometimes you're simply asking, who put the trail here? Then I came to Lehigh Gap. In about 1 mile, the trail climbs roughly 1,000 vertical feet over rocks. In places, you're using your hands as much as you're using your feet to work your way up. Somewhere during that climb, I started thinking, there better be a view at the top of this thing. And there was. When I turned around, below me was the town of Palmerton and the Lehigh River. It was beautiful. And right there in that beautiful landscape was an EPA Superfund site, the legacy of the old zinc smelting industry that had badly damaged the environment of the mountains above the river. I had just climbed 1,000 feet up through Rocksylvania for a beautiful view of a Superfund site. Yeah. Now that's a pointless up and down, except it wasn't. There was a view. There's always a view. You just need to look. What struck me was that the beauty and the damage occupied the same landscape. The scars were real and the beauty was real. Neither one canceled out the other. Something else had changed. The mountain was healing. The vegetation was coming back. I could actually see the difference from when I had last climbed up there in 2021. The scars hadn't disappeared, but you could still see what happened there. But new life was growing in the damaged places. It's not a bad description of human life, is it? Maybe that's what reorder actually looks like. Not going back to who we were before the damage happened. Not pretending the scars aren't there, but discovering that the scars and the beauty can occupy the same landscape. And that, given time and the right conditions, something new can grow there. Psalm 30 understands that kind of landscape. And the psalmist cries, "What profit is there in my death if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you?" Now, that's not polished theology. That's gut level lament. That's, what is the point of this? And God receives it. The pre-chorus of Pointless Ups and Downs says, it's 1,000 feet up and 500 down. Through the green tunnel, my thoughts spin around. 2 steps forward and 1 step back. 5,000 white blazes keep me on track. That's the trail, but it's also life. 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But that doesn't mean you're not going anywhere. You're still 1 step farther down the trail. There's another experience from this summer that taught me something about the ups and downs we don't plan. One Sunday morning, I prayed Father Michael's prayer as usual. Lord, take me where you want me to go. Have me meet who you'd have me meet. That morning, I preached in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Afterwards, I drove back to the Lookout Hostel. The World Cup final was on, and I figured I'd sit there and watch the game, and I was all by myself, and said, well, this is okay. I'll just watch the game by myself. There's an Appalachian Trail social media personality named She-Ra. I followed She-Ra for several years online. During that time, She-Ra has been very public about her transition from living as a man to living as a woman. And I'd watched all that from a distance, and I wondered. I'll leave it at that. I wondered. But I got back to the Lookout, and guess what? In walks She-Ra. Said, "You're She-Ra." And she said, "Yes, I am." I thought, well, I guess God listened to my prayer. Have me meet who you would have me meet. Yes. Here's the thing. She-Ra and I became friends. Really good friends. For the next week or so, we talked and laughed and hung out at the hostel and around town. We put on Italian night and served the other hikers and the hostel owners and their family. I rode 10 more miles to the lookout there. Shira loved it and has been promoting the song online ever since. I think I had always assumed that that prayer meant put somebody in my path that I can help. Give me someone who will listen to me. Maybe somebody I can encourage. Somebody I can minister to. I do have a license after all. But maybe that wasn't what the prayer was about that day. Maybe God put Shira in my path because I needed to get past some of my own preconceived notions long enough to meet the actual person standing in front of me. And once I did, I didn't meet an issue or a category. I met a person, and I made a friend. Which brings me back to the last line of Father Michael's prayer. Keep me out of your way. Maybe sometimes that means getting my opinions and my assumptions, even my need to understand everything, out of the way so I can simply meet another human being as they are. Sometimes the person God puts in your path isn't somebody you're supposed to minister to. Sometimes there's simply somebody you're supposed to know and love. And sometimes when you get yourself out of the way, you discover they have something to give you. That too is part of reorder. We start seeing differently. The world hasn't necessarily changed. Something in us has. Psalm 30, verse 11 says, you have turned my mourning into dancing. You have taken off my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. This is reorder. Doesn't mean everything's fixed. It means something new has begun. Not the same life restored, but perhaps a deeper one, a freer one. The fourth verse of Pointless Ups and Downs takes us to Mount Katahdin, the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail in Maine. On a September morning, blue skies stretched wide. Katahdin stood before me, so rugged, so bright. The clouds blew away, the whole world in view. A moment sublime, yet perfectly true. Finally, there's a view. That's the mountaintop experience that we want. That's where we think the movie ought to end. Except I still had to come down off the mountain. The bridge of the song says, a crash landing down the A-ball trail, torn and bruised, no place to bail. Maine's wild heart, my high, my low, it broke me wide open so something could grow. My high, my low, on the same mountain. That's what reorder feels like. The wound doesn't disappear, but it can become a place from which something new grows. And notice what Psalm 30 actually says. It doesn't say God erased my mourning and replaced it with dancing. You have turned my mourning into dancing. The mourning becomes part of the dance. The scars remain as part of the landscape. The wound becomes a womb. You like that, Reed? There you go. The wound becomes a womb. That's the strange promise of resurrection. The risen Jesus still bears the wounds. They aren't erased or explained away, but the place of death becomes the place from which new life emerges. Palmerton can be beautiful and damaged at the same time. And so can I. And so can you. Psalm 30 is a trail song. Begins in praise, moves to lament, and returns to joy. I shall never be moved. I was dismayed. You have turned my morning into dancing. Order, disorder, reorder. After walking the trail again this summer, I think I understand my own song a little different than when I wrote it. I used to think the point of the climb was the view. Now I'm not so sure. Sometimes the view is Katahdin under a blue September sky. Sometimes it's Palmerton and a Superfund site. Sometimes you're surrounded by trees and can't see anything. And sometimes the gift isn't the view at all. Sometimes it's the person who unexpectedly walks through the door. Maybe the point of the climb isn't always what we see from the top. Maybe sometimes the point is who we're becoming as we climb. The final lines of Pointless Ups and Downs says this: from Georgia to Maine, no trophy, no crown, just learning to love these ups and downs. So wherever you are today, look for the next white blaze. Do the next right thing. Keep on walking. Because all those apparent pointless ups and downs and pointless miles are still taking you somewhere. And after a few thousand miles, I've learned this. There's always a view. You just need to look. And there's no such thing as a pointless up and down. Amen? Amen. Amen. Well, AJ, where are you, AJ? There he comes. All right. You want to hear the song? You want to hear the song? All right. You'll hear the song. My upcoming second album. I like saying that. First album was a praise and worship album that I did back in my mega church days in 2021. You know, it's funny, I made CDs, 1,000 of them, had printed and sent. It was the week that everybody took their CD player to the pawn shop. So I still have a bunch of them. I should have brought them. Try not to move too much. Climb to the top where there's nothing to see. Just a wall of clouds and a cage of trees. No ridge, no valley, no grand reveal. Just aching legs and the drag of the trail. I drop to the gap where the cold winds hum. No sunlight reaches, no shuttle will come. No time to rest, no water to find. Just another climb up, another steep grind. It's 1,000 feet up and 500 down. Through the green tunnel, my thoughts spin around. 2 steps forward and 1 step back. 5,000 white blazes keep me on track. There's no such thing as a pointless up and down. Each step we take gets us closer to town. Trail provides if you give it your all. So hike your own hike even after a fall. There's no such thing as a pointless up and down. Mud of a mine tried to pull off my shoe. Pennsylvania's the place where boots go to lose. Hampshire's gonna humble, the wildcats will tear. The trail doesn't mind if you're ready or scared. It's 1,000 feet up, 500 down. Through the green tunnel, my thoughts spin around. 2 steps forward and 1 step back. 5,000 white blazes keep us on track. such thing as a pointless up and down. Each step we take gets us close to town. The trail provides if you give it your all. So hike your own hike even after a fall. There's no such thing as a pointless up and down. September morning, blue skies up wide. Good Titan stood before me, so rugged, so bright. Clouds blew away the whole world in view. A moment sublime, yet perfectly true. I crashed landing down the A-ball trail, torn and bruised, no place to bail. Pain's wild heart, my high, my low, broke me wide open so something could grow. There's no such thing as a pointless up and down. Each step we take gets us closer to town. The trail provides if you give it your all. So hike your own hike even after a fall. There's no such thing as a pointless. Life is never a platinum blaze, just dirt and sweat through joy and haze. From Georgia to Maine, no trophy, no crown, just learning to love these ups and downs.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Weekly Teaching. To watch the full live stream of this worship service, you can view all archived streams at the Alamo Heights UMC YouTube channel. If you have any questions, email us at podcasts@ahumc.org. That's podcasts@ahumc.org. You can also visit our website, ahumc.org, anytime. Any related links are also in this episode's show notes. Again, thank you so much for being a listener. We truly appreciate your time.